us as human beings, we began as movers. We are movers by nature. So due to survival needs, we learned how to walk long distances, we learned how to run long distances, we learned how to throw with great precision, we learned how to build objects, carry objects, lift objects, we learned how to climb, we can even swim. Now, what do all of these movements have in common? They require locomotion, which is getting from one point to the other. They also require the entire body to work as a unit. Now, movement came before exercise. It came long before exercise. It was birthed out of necessity, and it ultimately designed the human structure that we know today and that we understand through anatomy and physiology. Now, when we've taken this understanding of anatomy and physiology and applied it to the exercise world, a lot of this information has been lost in translation. A lot of this ancient wisdom relating to these movement patterns that I discussed previous has been forgotten about and a lot of the time neglected and misunderstood when we apply it to exercise. Because exercise is basically movements that we can place into a box. We can explain them through concepts that we think we know, or that are basically an extension of what we know through anatomy and physiology. So anatomy is the makeup of our entire body, our bones, our skin, our muscles, our connective tissue, our organs. And physiology is how they move. But when we spend too much time looking at the structure in an isolated sense, that is how we create exercises, because we create these movements to build up our muscles and look at them as an isolated sense, as opposed to how they were really designed for movement. So I've got my trusty friend here again, and I've used this as an example in other videos before, but I think it's extremely important to keep highlighting this point here. So let's start from the top of the body here. Look at the muscle fibers in the chest, how they wrap around into the shoulder joint. This is from the front view of the body, and we can see the back of the shoulder wraps up here, and then the back muscles that are all connected come around in this looping motion. Okay, and so let's take throwing for example. Throwing requires this multiple directions of muscles to be able to articulate this winding up motion and this follow through. So that is how our shoulder joint is designed. But when we isolate the muscle groups involved in the shoulders and take it into an exercise setting, then we become less expressive in our movements, and they become these fixed movement patterns that are very rigid in movement, and they take away the motions and the movements involved in the shoulder, which is the throwing or the climbing, the reaching, and we look at it as muscle groups as opposed to movement patterns. So once again, back to the structure. Let's take the lower body for example, and one of the most necessary movement patterns for the human being is walking and running. So when we look at how this lower section is designed for walking and running, notice how the quadricep muscles wrap around the body into the hip. They come around, see all of this different shape in the shin, all of the tendons and everything, all of this design here in the foot, how this is related. Each tendon, ligament, muscles, they all relate to each individual toe. This is all a stream of connections running right up the legs. And from the back section we can see the glute, and they actually link in these diagonal shapes. So the body has these diagonal shapes that allow us to offset the forces of gravity as we are through motion. So when we're walking and we're running, as our leg extends behind our body, as we extend it behind the body, our torso rotates as such, and our knees actually cross our center line. So basically when we're running, our legs are almost doing this zigzagging motion. And this is seen here in the anatomy as the muscles cross over the body. So we're creating these rotating patterns to offset the force of gravity as we move through motion, or as we move through space. So this is how our structure is designed. Our structure is designed for all of this variety. Once again though, if we take our legs and look at them as muscle groups and purely focus on these very restrictive movement patterns, such as simply just extending the leg or pressing a weight, then we are taking the natural design of the body and we are neglecting the ligaments, the tendons, the connective tissue, and we're purely focusing on building muscle. So this inhibits our movement and can lead to compensatory patterns when other areas of the body are not working correctly. This leads to accumulative damage over the years, the tendons not being worked in their natural tempo. So our bodies actually have ingrained tempos and rhythms to them that allow them to move in such ways. So the best example I can give is when we run, we have a natural cadence, and this is in relation to how our tendons work. So our tendons are very efficient at storing energy and releasing it when we run. And the natural tempo for the human being when running is about 180 steps per minute. This is allowing our tendons to do their job. So when we're exercising with these artificial tempos, when we're neglecting the movement patterns, when we are neglecting the ranges of motion and the shapes of the muscles, and we're purely looking at building them for size, then it's no wonder that we run into so many modern day injuries. Not to mention the fact that we sit more often than we ever have. We have phones, we have screens that are pulling our neck forward. So we really must consider all of this information when we're choosing exercises, and are these exercises improving our movement or are they taking away from it? So just a thought for today, movement came before exercise. So is your exercise improving your movement or is it taking away from it? So thanks for watching. Comment down below, and if you'd like to support this channel, please like, comment, and check out our website Humanised Training for in-depth movement programs that help you move in relation to your human anatomy and physiology. Cheers.